It's Friday with Dan and Kyle. And the Toronto Blue Jays, there hasn't been a single day, it seems, this offseason where they haven't made news. And the Friday news is Dalton Varsho, Ernie Clement, both avoid salary arbitration. They'll each be back for 1 year.
You know, Dan, thinking about the way this offseason's gone for the Blue Jays, what I love most about this is with all this talk of these big free agents coming to town, some of them already signed, some of them still with speculation. Keeping the nucleus of this team together to me is just as important, as much as they can possibly do that, as adding these new names. And I love that they're approaching this from both sides of the coin here.
Eric Lauer, the only unsigned player, and it looks like he may be headed to arbitration. And the Bichette news is this was floated by, I forget what reporter said it, but he didn't name any sources or quote any sources, but he says he is asking for in the ballpark of $300 million for his contract.
Well, I can only imagine that if that is in fact the ask, the possibility of both him and Tucker signing in Toronto is now out the window. That's a big, big dollar amount. And I assume we're looking at that's probably 10-year commitment for him, 8 to 10 years, something like that. I don't really know, but man, it's a big number, Dan. I don't know if the Blue Jays would be the team to commit to that, to be perfectly honest with you.
And I know it's an injury. I know he's young, but to sign a guy for $300 million and you're looking back at his last 2 months of the season, you're like, we're going to give this guy who's hobbling around $300 million?
Yeah, the optics of that weren't fantastic the way his season ended. I mean, the way his season ended was the optics of that big World Series Game 7 home run, but just the way things went down the stretch, a lower body injury to a player that plays the way he is, that can be very frightening for a team. And for the sake of the credit you were trying to give there, it was John Heyman of the New York Post.
John Heyman.
And
Johnny boy.
at $300 million, I don't know if I'm biting on that. I don't know if Toronto could possibly get, the average annual value to me in this is less important than the amount of years he's asking for a commitment there, because that's got to be a 10-year ask. And if it's an 8-year ask, that's an enormous average annual value for him.
With each passing day, the likelihood of Bichette remaining with the Jays decreases significantly in my mind.
I agree with you 100%, Dan. I think this would have been wrapped up already, and it seems like they're waiting on what Tucker's going to do more than anything. And I'm not suggesting Bichette is their backup plan, and I'm not suggesting they've waited to either tell him he's not coming back until after his wedding or anything like that, which was last week. I agree with you totally. But stepping back from that, I have to tell you, this whole roller coaster that their offseason has been, they've been the talk of the offseason since day one. And it has been absolutely fantastic being a Canadian. I've enjoyed every second of this.
And now the Toronto Maple Leafs are like, hey, you remember us? In their last 8, the Leafs are 6-0-2. This is a team that was dead last in the division several times. Now they are in the playoff mix, not officially. Last I checked, they're right outside. I think they're a point out, right?
They're also only a few points out of first place, too.
Yeah,
so it's
exactly.
Weird. The Atlantic, baby.
As we bring in Pierre McGuire, the Leafs are 1 point behind the Buffalo Sabres, who hold the second and final wildcard spot. Pierre, was there any doubt that the Leafs would finally figure it out?
Yes, there was, especially with all the injuries. And, you got to give a lot of credit to Craig Berube and his staff. They kept it together. They made a subtle little change with the staff. Mark Savard out, Stevie Sullivan in. Power play starting to become more effective. I'll cede them that. I think the penalty killings become very effective. I'll cede them that as well. They deserve a lot of credit on that. But the biggest thing is overcoming injuries. No William Nylander, excuse me, I'm dating myself. No Christopher Tanev. No Dakota Mermis, no Anthony Stolars. Like, they've been decimated. No Dakota Joshua. I mean, it's a murderer's row of injured players, and they found a way. I think that this team now has rebounded to the point where if they beat Vancouver on Saturday night in Toronto, it sets up unbelievably well for that road trip that goes to Colorado and Utah and Vegas and Winnipeg. And if they could ever go out of those 8 points, if they could do 6 out of 8 or 5 out of 8, I don't think it's any doubt they're going to be a playoff team.
Pierre, I spend an enormous amount of my life now talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs with you very specifically. And it seems like these same names keep coming into the conversation. And these guys like Scott Laughton have held the line for this team, and they've had strong seasons waiting for the rest of the team to catch up and start playing around them. How important is a commitment of someone like Scott Laughton to this entire season that he's been in the lineup to keeping this team steady and ready to finally play up to their potential?
Awesome way to look at it. Scott Laughton's a heart and soul guy. He's a glue player. I was shocked that, really surprised last year that they traded him out of Philadelphia to Toronto. And he was bitterly disappointing, I think, in the playoffs last year for Toronto. And I think he's the first person that actually said, I know I can be a lot better. And Kyle, he's been a lot better. He was playing as well or better than any Toronto Maple Leaf in the preseason before he got hurt. And they missed him at the start of the year. I mean, when the Toronto Maple Leafs are healthy, and you think about, let's just do this, Austin Matthews, John Tavares, Nicholas Roy, Scott Laughton, that's a center ice position is good or better than anybody's in the league if they're all playing well. It's deep enough. And so Laughton's been the glue guy that's helped bring everybody together. That was a massive shorthanded goal the other day in Philadelphia. Obviously made a huge difference in the game, and it's a great way for Toronto to steal 2 points out of Philadelphia when it was looking like they were going to lose.
Rogers really needs the Leafs to make the postseason, because as it stands right now, there are 2 Canadian teams with their hands on a playoff spot, the Oilers and Canadians. It is not a good year for the NHL in Canada, especially in the West, where the last 3 teams in the West are the Flames, Canucks, and Jets.
It's not a good year in the United States either, because the New York Rangers are probably going to miss the playoffs for the second time in a row. The Boston Bruins are probably going to miss the playoffs. Chicago is teetering, and the LA Kings are teetering. Those are massive TV markets. And just to paint it to another level, Dan, you're so spot on. Think about this for 1 second. For the second year in a row, the Winter Classic on TNT drew less than 1 million viewers. That, I can tell you, I did a bunch of those, probably like 14 or 15 Winter Classics. We were 3 million plus. 3 million, not less than 1 million. So a marquee event for the National Hockey League. And then you think about it. If you don't have the Rangers, you don't have Boston, you don't have Chicago, you don't have LA in the playoffs, your TV numbers are cratering. So in Canada, it's critically important for Toronto and Vancouver to be in it. I don't think Vancouver will be in it. And then Montreal, if they could go on a run, would be great. But if Toronto could go on a run, it would be amazing for everybody.
Pierre,
the Maple Leafs are a critical brand.
With regards to the outdoor game, come on. The novelty wore off years ago.
I agree.
I think it's time that they move the Winter Outdoor Classics to Netflix and have Jake Paul driving the Zamboni. That'll have a lot of people tuning in, I think.
No, you know what would bring it back? If you had it on like Lake Louise and just did it with the players.
Just with the players. That'd be incredible.
Well, one of the best ideas I ever heard was take it to a farmer's field in Alberta.
Yes.
Put up lights with cars focused at the rink.
Like Field of Dreams.
Temporary Field of Dreams, temporary stands. But what a TV product.
And just fill it with minor hockey league players that just absolutely love every second of it.
It would be amazing. So no, it's heartbreaking to think about. Remember the Heritage game? I remember covering the Heritage game in Edmonton. That's when Jose Theodore put the toque over his head and it became a legendary picture. I remember getting frostbite with Gord Miller and Bob McKenzie at that. It was so freaking cold there in Edmonton. It was unbelievable. But people watched. People watched because of the elements, what the players were fighting through. It brought back memories for everybody, especially Canadian people that grew up in those kinds of environments. So, yeah, it's lost a little bit of its luster. I think where it really lost its luster, though, they started oversaturating it with what they called the Stadium Series. We didn't have to do a Stadium Series. Just keep one Winter Classic a year. Now we're going to play in Tampa. Now they're going to have a game in Tampa at the end of the month.
I love the Farmers Field idea because Fox did the Field of Dreams game, and it was a ratings bonanza. I was crying watching the thing. But the problem the NHL would run into, they are such a ticket revenue driven league. The owners would say, how am I going to make money off this?
Get sponsors.
Well, you know why we haven't had NHL players at the Olympics since 2014?
Yeah.
But Dan just said, Dan O'Toole nailed it. That's exactly why we haven't. There's no money for them. So that's why. And then I think what happened, they used that as a bargaining tool in collective bargaining. The league did, saying, all right, we want you guys to agree to this deal, but we'll give you the Olympics, because all the top players wanted to play. McDavid wanted to play. McKinnon wanted to play. Crosby wanted to play. Matthew, they all want to play in the Olympics. They all do.
Yeah. Pierre, I want to circle back to the Leafs 1 second and ask you about someone on this roster, because I remember the conversations we had at the preseason at the very start of the season, speculating how many games would Easton Cowan play in the NHL this season. Well, now he is a full-time NHL player, and watching him evolve, how has that been from your perspective, watching him grow into some confidence now that he has a secure roster spot?
It's awesome. I love players like that. He makes a difference with and without the puck. He makes the players around him better. He's playing with vim, vigor, and vitality. He's dynamite on the forecheck. He finishes his opportunities when he has them. I love the winning goal the other day with John Tavares. And you could see Tavares did a real good job, like holding, then spinning and moving it. Easton's been great. I'm happy for him. It's remarkable for the Leaf fans long-term, because he's one of those guys that's going to be a dynamite player for a long time. They haven't had a lot of young guys floating through their organization that are like this. So it's tremendous news, I think, and it's really fun to watch.
And the Leafs are doing all this without Willie.
Mm-hmm. Without Willie, without Chris, they just got, hey, this is for all those Brandon Carlo haters out there. Brandon Carlo makes a difference.
He does.
He's not fancy. He's not sexy. He's not cute. He just makes a difference. You got to have those guys if you're going to win playoff style games. And so him coming back helps a lot. They still miss Tanev a lot. I don't think they're deep enough on the right side. I think it's something Brad Treliving is going to have to address as we go into the roster freeze for the Olympics, or maybe just after. But that's one of the places they really need to address as a team if they want to take the next step as a group.
Pierre, looking back, you yourself, Dan, and EJ did a great roster speculation show about the Canadian Olympic roster. It's now set in stone. Any hindsight regrets from your end? What would you change with this roster as it heads into the Olympics?
I'll never disparage any player that makes his team. So I'm not going to say this guy should be off or that guy should. Anybody that's on that thing deserves a huge amount of respect. That's a hard roster to make. I would have Sam Bennett on the roster if I'm Canada. And I would also have Mark Scheifele on the roster if I'm Canada. But the reason why I would have Sam Bennett can stabilize the Tkachuks. People don't want to talk about that, but you're going to have to stabilize the Tkachuks. Trust me. He's a teammate of Matthew Tkachuk. He knows him as well or better than anybody. And I think that that's going to be something, even though it's quote unquote the Olympics, you still have to stabilize those guys. And I watched Sam Bennett play last night against the Montreal Canadiens. And that's a very underwhelming Florida roster right now because of injury. He was phenomenal. He was outstanding. Faceoffs, penalty kill, forechecks, scoring. Sam Bennett makes a difference. And then Scheifele, because of his versatility, he can play wing, he can play center, he can kill penalties, he can be on your first power play, he can be on your second power play. Those were the two that I was surprised didn't make it. But that being said, it's a tremendous roster. The only question mark you have, depth on defense and who's going to be the goalie.
Well, the question mark about the rink too, but is the NHL now in full send mode with their players? Because the latest update is they said the rink, the practice facilities, the ice, the locker rooms, they'll all be ready. There'll be certain parts that aren't finished, but everything else that you need will be.
The certain parts that won't be finished, and I know this for sure from inside, from the hierarchy of the National Hockey League, are going to be the buildings that are around the rink. Okay. So the actual visual experience when you go there, it's not going to be what it was supposed to be.
So it's not going to be some guy during play on a scaffold in the far right corner.
Correct. It's more the aesthetic beauty around the arena. It's not going to look spectacular, but the inside's going to be finished, and it's not going to be a second-class opportunity for anybody that goes there, and it's going to be safe. That's the number one thing I think the league's concerned about. And I know owners that have talked to me about it. They want the playing facilities safe.
So it's full green light now,
as far as I know.
Yeah, and I guess for this, the TV revenues is really what drives this, right? If there's any issues with seating and whatnot, it obviously takes a back seat to just making sure this televised product gets put out to the right markets at the right time.
Yeah, well, so you look at NBC, and that's what makes still people wonder, what was the NHL thinking if they were going to go back to the Olympics and cut NBC out of the national TV deal? It made no sense. They've been one of the best partners the NHL has ever had in terms of the U.S. markets for television. And it was all over $50 million a year on a 6-year deal, which is, in their world, that's nothing. Anyways, it is what it is. They move on. But I know NBC's put a lot of money into the development of this Olympics, especially for men's and women's hockey, which nobody wants to talk about. And it'll be phenomenal. Hopefully we can get it, a U.S.-Canada final on the women's side. And if they could ever do that on the men's side, the numbers will be through the roof, and it'll be great for everybody. It'll be fantastic for everybody.
Women's hockey, we care, Pierre. How's our Canadian women's team looking? Are they going to be in the gold medal game?
They're good. They're good. They should be able to get to the gold medal game. I think the biggest thing for them is a transition. There are not as many old players on it. And I don't mean old in terms of, oh, they're decrepit. I mean ladies with experience, actual international experience at that level. The Americans, this is a transitioning roster. They got a lot of young ladies playing. And there's one in particular, if you're a fan of it, watch Haley Wynn, who plays for the Americans. She's a phenomenal, phenomenal talent out of Rochester, New York, went to Clarkson University. She is so good. It's ridiculous. She's a defenseman, and she's outstanding. I would say Canada, U.S. is setting up for a gold medal game on the women's side, and that's really positive.
Here, we saw it in the World Junior Tournament that just ended last week, and we're going to see it in the Olympics this year. As far as the men's game goes, the rest of the world has caught up to Canada. It's just that simple. There's now 6 or 7 elite nations of hockey. Where does it stand on the women's side? We know Canada and the U.S. run a 1A, 1B situation for sure. The drop-off from there used to be significant, but how much have they caught up in the other regions of the world?
Sweden and Finland have caught up significantly. They really have. They're waiting on the Czechs. They're waiting on the Slovaks, obviously. But Sweden and Finland have really crossed big barriers to get to where they are right now. I spent a lot of time over the first 3 months of the hockey season, so October, November, December, over in Europe, trying to cultivate the women's game. I spoke to a huge group in early October about the growth of the women's game, and you can see the passion is there. There's people that are interested financially to support it, and so I think it will continue to grow. I really do.
Pierre, we were talking about Czechia at the World Juniors, and I asked producer Tim, this was on our my podcast Boomsies, and I said, when did they change it from Czech Republic to Czechia? This is what producer Tim said. He said, they changed it years ago, didn't tell anyone. I'm like, what?
I think that's true.
Well, here's what I do know. I've spent a lot of time there, going back as far as the late 1980s, early 1990s. There's a player that came out of there named Jaromír Jágr from Kladno. Back then, it was called Czechoslovakia. It still was. And I was there when it changed to the Czech Republic. And I've seen a lot of Martin Straka playing there, or the Hammerlich brothers playing there. So I've been a lot of great cities in their country, in Czechia, which is what it's called now. And I've had some of the best times over the holiday seasons being over there too. Fantastic country, tons of respect, and awesome hockey country.
So when did the signage change there?
I don't remember it changing, Dan. That's what I'm saying. I don't remember the signage changing.
Jaromír Jágr was on the receiving end of my favorite goal call ever. There's only 4 people in the whole rink he didn't deke, and 3 of them are ushers. I will never forget that.
That was against Chicago, I believe, right? That was against Chicago.
It was against the Chicago Blackhawks. Yeah. Harry Neal.
I had a pretty good seat for that one. I was watching it from about 40 feet away.
Yeah. That's a pretty damn good seat.
Good. And one of the guys, well, there's 2 guys in particular that are legendary defensive players. One of them was Brent Sutter, and the other one was Christopher Chelios.
Brent Sutter was the last card I pointed to.
I was just wondering when we were going to do it.
In our 1 degree of Pierre McGuire, where I point to a card behind me, he tells me his connection to that player. I don't think I've ever gone lower right. Mario Lemieux.
Oh, where do I start? Probably the most unassuming superstar that I've ever had the privilege of knowing. It was all about the team, not about him. Very selfless, very demanding in terms of your work habits. That would surprise a lot of people. I think what people misunderstood about Mario more than anything else, he was really fast. And everybody would just see him gliding around. His glide was fast. It was a lot like Paul Coffey, really, really fast. Mario was a gamer. He would ask you before a game, who am I playing against tonight? You tell him, okay, what do I need to know? You tell him, he digests it, boom, go to work. The biggest part of his legacy will be when the Pittsburgh Penguins in 1992 in the first round were down 3-1 to Washington. Scotty Bowman said, we got to change our neutral zone. We got to change how we forecheck. He says, so we got to come up with a plan. So Barry Smith, Rick Keogh, and I sat down. We came up with a plan. We sold it to Scotty. Scotty says, bring Mario to the suite. Mario comes up. We're at the Landover, Maryland Marriott Hotel. It's called the Greenbelt Marriott. Mario comes in. Scotty says, Mario, listen to these guys. They're going to tell you what the game plan is, and then you're going to tell the players tomorrow. We're down 3-1 in the series. We tell it all to Mario. Mario goes and executes it with the team the next day at the morning skate. We go back and we win game 5 on the road, game 6 at home, game 7 on the road. The rest is history. That's Mario Lemieux is an unbelievable hockey guy, but he's a pure winner. Unbelievable winner.
And was it his agent or himself who made him the most brilliant financial guy when he said, okay, you guys can't pay me, then I want a part of the team?
I think that he's a little bit of that too. And I think his wife Natalie's a little bit of that. And I think his agents were a little bit of that too. So Mario surrounded himself with some really intelligent people. One of the things that I really am proud of with Mario is how much he gives back to the community in Pittsburgh in particular. His foundation is phenomenal. I go back and work with his fantasy camp every year. That's going to take place in March this year, March 22nd to the 26th, I think. There are 80 people from around the world. Picture this, 80 people from around the world. And they pay to go to Mario. And you are treated like an NHL player for a week. Everything is NHL. And Mario gives all the money to the Cancer Society in Pittsburgh. It's unbelievable what he does. He didn't tell anybody. He just does it. That's the kind of person Mario is.
Let me know if you need a secretary for that, Pierre. Mario's my favorite player of all time.
Here's my challenge to Bet Rivers, because they are a big sponsor of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I think we should do a week of podcasting from Mario Lemieux's fantasy camp there.
I hope someone important's watching this. I'm in.
I'm in. Just for the Permantes, right, just for the Permantes brothers sandwiches alone.
No, but it's a fantasy camp, and you're an NHL person. You're not allowed to go to Permantes till after the last game of the playoff is done.
Okay. I see.
I'm fine with that.
I'm in either way. I'm totally in.
I just got to give you one quick one on this. So when Mario first brought me in, he says, I loved your practices, but I hated how hard they were. I said, yeah, I get it. He goes, I want you to do that. I want these guys to experience what an NHL practice is really like.
Oh,
so I
no.
said, are you sure? This was the first year. So I said, are you sure? He goes, yeah, 100% sure. So I get on the ice and I bring the guys and I said, look, I'm not going to blow the whistle a lot. This is what I need you to do. Just pay attention and listen, and you're going to have a ton of fun. After 10 minutes, Mario's sitting in the stands and he looks at me and goes, that's enough.
How many of them puked?
Nobody did, but they were falling over. It was pretty funny, though. It was great.
What's the skill level of most of those people? Are they complete amateurs?
There's some that are really good.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. There's some guys that come over we've got people from Australia and from Asia, and we've got people from Europe. We got people from all over Western Canada. It's unbelievable.
Awesome.
There's some really good players there. But Mario Lemieux is one of the best social citizens you'll ever meet. I'm just telling you straight up. He really cares about his community.
Well, I can't wait to meet him in March. Thanks for the sales pitch, Pierre. And gentlemen, have an amazing weekend.
Awesome being with you, gentlemen. Thank you.